Well, on the other side, as President Biden recovers from COVID, CBS News is learning that he could leave the race in a matter of days. Last night, Senator Jon Tester of Montana became the second U.S. senator to publicly call on Biden to withdraw his bid for the White House. And we also know that high-profile Democrats are huddling about Biden's prospects, including former President Barack Obama. So our Weijia Jiang is at the White House to talk a little bit more about this. First thing I want to start off with, Weijia, is the president's health. What are we learning about this COVID diagnosis? I don't even know what kind of what the protocol is now, but I think it's only sort of 5 days that you really kind of need to stay, isolated. So should he be back on the campaign trail soon?
Well, you're right about the 5-day isolation period, Anne-Marie, and we know that the president is at his beach house in Rehoboth recovering from COVID, and his doctor says he's still experiencing mild symptoms. That's as of yesterday. We saw a doctor's note, but he also said that the president is continuing to conduct the business of the American people, and so it does not sound like those symptoms have progressed. In terms of how long he will take, that's also to be determined because, again, this president is 81 years old, and we know just anecdotally that it can take longer for, people in that age group to recover from the virus. And no matter what age you are, you never know how COVID is going to strike you. And so the question of when he returns to the trail, that's a big one, because even if he's out of this isolation period, there is a question of whether he is exhausted or ready to, hit the trail again, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, he's just been having sort of a terrible few days. Today we learned that that a court has blocked his student loan plan. I think my hair's on my microphone there. His SAFE plan, so that's not moving ahead. We've got another senator now who's willing to publicly say that he'd like to see the president move on from this campaign. I got to ask you, what are we hearing from the White House? I know there's a difference between President Biden and candidate Biden, but, are you getting any indications from the White House, particularly as we hear that there might be some decision-making happening over the weekend?
So I want to be really careful about that, Anne-Marie, because even though two senior House Democrats say they believe that the president and this question of his candidacy could be resolved in a matter of days, that's just two people. And at the end of the day, even though we also know in our reporting that the president has become more receptive to listening the case against him, that doesn't mean that that's what he's going to ultimately decide. Because despite how much pressure mounts, despite how closely the walls are caving in on his candidacy, it is one person who can make this decision, Anne-Marie, and that is Joe Biden. And we do not know how all of these conversations are impacting him because they've been going on now for quite some time. In fact, we know that Schumer and Jeffries had a meeting with him, expressed how their members are feeling about his viability. And guess what? He still went to Las Vegas. He still had back-to-back network interviews. He still spoke to several different events. He was still going to do another campaign event until he was diagnosed with COVID. And so, Anne-Marie, it really depends on Joe Biden. And, the White House says it's business as usual. In fact, they're pushing back on any reports that he is going to step down imminently as, quote, fan fiction. We just now heard from the Biden campaign chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon, who reiterated that Biden is in the race and said last night seeing Donald Trump was a good reminder why. So they're banking on Americans remembering Donald Trump because he hasn't had that prime time slot for quite some time now. And they think that's going to make a difference to get their campaign back on track. Anne-Marie.
Interesting. All right, Weijia, thank you very much.